What up, guys? It's Dom. Welcome back to another movie review. As you see, I'm not holding a mic. I got a new mic, and hopefully it's better. Let me know. I think it does need to be raised a little bit, but there's nothing much I can do right now. So today we are continuing our grind through the X-Men franchise before Deadpool and Wolverine comes out. I'm seeing it on the 25th of July, so I got about 2 months to get all these videos out. So I'm crossing my fingers. I hope I can do it. But either way, today we're going to be covering X2. X2, released in 2003, written and directed by Bryan Singer. Now this is the second movie of the X-Men franchise. Let's just get into the 10 essential aspects of a movie. The first essential aspect is plot. Now I liked the plot of X2. I think they did a great job continuing from where X-Men left off, which is very good in a franchise. You need some continuity within all the movies, so I think they did a great job with that. And during this plot, I liked how they had the heroes and villains unite to stop a common threat, because that's always cool to see how nemesi, whatever the word is, they come together even though they hate each other to defeat someone that both of them are enemies of. That's always really cool to see in any superhero movies, because it's something that's unique, like you don't usually see. For example, Iron Man and Doctor Doom teaming up to go defeat Galactus, for example. Like, that's really cool. I always liked watching movies that have that in it. So I thought that was a great choice, especially to continue this franchise. And obviously, like in a lot of movies that are superhero movies, there's a lot of betrayals, a lot of twists and turns and surprises. So that I also enjoyed. I thought that added a little bit extra to this plot. So overall, I think it's a great plot. The second essential aspect is attraction. Of course, this movie is entertaining. I mean, it is an X-Men movie. You get to see so many mutants use their powers, which is so cool. There's so many scenes in this movie that I just loved watching, strictly because it was so many different powers being used, which is always amazing. Plus, the premise itself is interesting and keeps you engaged the whole time. So it definitely checks that attraction box up easily. The third essential aspect is theme. So I think the theme of this movie is similar to what it was in X-Men, which was mutant rights, how they wanted mutants to be treated the same way. And I think it is pretty similar, except I feel like this movie focused more on acceptance, that mutants should be accepted into society instead of kind of straight away. So overall, I think that was a good theme to have, because it did make sense to have it after the first movie, and it just got deeper into the plot. So honestly, I think that was a great theme to use for this movie. The fourth essential aspect is dialogue. Now, the dialogue in this movie isn't anything special. It's just like the first movie, it's well done. But something really cool within this movie is when Xavier was talking to Jean, or vice versa, and when Xavier was talking to Jason, because they're all telepaths, so the conversations are happening in each other's heads. So it's a really cool scene to see, because Jason's whole thing is creating an illusion in Xavier's head when they're talking. So they're talking to each other in their head, not speaking any words to each other in reality. So anyone else that's in the room has no idea that these conversations are happening. So that was a really cool piece of dialogue that they included. And same thing with Jean and Xavier. In the end of the movie, they also talked to each other in each other's heads. Or Jean used Xavier to have a conversation with Cyclops, for example. That was also cool, because it was Xavier talking, but it was Jean talking through him, and Cyclops had to realize that it wasn't actually Xavier talking, it was Jean. So that was an interesting scene, and that was a really cool use of dialogue. So I thought they nailed that. The fifth essential aspect is acting. The cast is just like in the first movie. Of course, we have Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Patrick Stewart as Xavier, and Ian McKellen as Magneto. So they all did a great job, just like in the first movie. But I wanted to specifically talk about Anna Paquin, who played Rogue in both of these movies, and she definitely did a way better job in X2 than she did in X-Men. Because in X-Men, she was very awkward. There was a lot of scenes where she was kind of just doing some weird stare, or just silent in general, and I feel like, I don't know, it was weird to see it on the screen. But in this one, she did a great job. She actually, like, it felt real. Like, it actually felt like Rogue, not just someone acting weird as Rogue. So I think she did a great job. And Brian Cox, who played William Stryker, He did a great job. He did so well of expressing his emotions. He acted just like William Stryker should, an evil scientist. He acted like the bad guy. He had no remorse. It looked real. Like, he did a great job. So I wanted to talk about those two specifically because they did phenomenal in this one. The sixth essential aspect is cinematography. There are some scenes in this movie that were done really, really well. For example, there was a scene with Nightcrawler. So he is a teleporter. He attacks a bunch of dudes and uses his teleporting to just grab someone's gun, throw it across the room, teleport there, grab it with his tail, pistol whip a guy, and he just takes out all of these guys just by his lonesome just because he is so strong, because he's a teleporter. And that one was choreographed really, really well. It was an awesome watch. Then there was another one where these guys invaded the X Mansion, and it was like a stealth team. Like, they were super creepy. You can feel like an ambiance. That one was cool. And then, of course, all of the students at the X Mansion just using their powers against them was also really fun to watch, because you see so many different powers being used all in such a short scene. So that was done really well. And there's a few scenes that I'm going to talk about that are like illusions. So throughout the whole movie, there's a bunch of illusions because there's so many telepaths in this movie that all of them have their own illusions that they're using. So at some points, you never even know what's real, which is really interesting because you're there scratching your head like, okay, is this scene actually happening, or is it in his head, or what's going on? So those scenes were also done really well because it made you as the viewer almost confused, but also trying to figure it out on your own. So those were definitely done really, really well. The seventh essential aspect is editing. So this movie is 2 hours and 14 minutes long. And honestly, I think that is the length it should be. Because I would say, obviously, movies are better when they're slightly shorter. But again, this movie has so many different plot points that there's no way you would be able to get to all of them and give them the time that they deserve within a 2-hour time period. So I'm glad they added that extra time and really expanded the plot out as much as possible to cover these plot holes and actually end the movie correctly. So honestly, I think it is the perfect length. The eighth essential aspect is soundtrack. So the soundtrack in this movie isn't anything special. I mean, there's some suspenseful music here, intense music here, kind of sad music here, but the X-Men intro, of course, just like in the first one, it's just so iconic because it is just the X-Men sounds. So that was cool and a great way to start the movie out. The ninth essential aspect is directing. So this category kind of sums up the 8 past aspects that we went over, because the director is in charge of making the movie good using all of those aspects. And honestly, I think Bryan Singer did a great job. Now, he has done 4 movies before this one. He did Public Access, The Usual Suspects, Apt Pupil, and X-Men. And his previous movies did okay. X-Men did well, and that's why I am glad that he came back to do X-Men 2, X2, because he knew how to progress that plot from the first movie better than anyone, because he was the one that directed the first movie. He understood that plot better than anyone. So I'm glad he was the one put in charge to continue the plot. He did a great job. The 10th essential aspect is time. So this movie is 21 years old as of the recording of this video, and it's still relevant. People still say that X2 is one of the better X-Men movies. Everyone loves the franchise, and this is just a continuation of the very first movie that was in the franchise. So honestly, it definitely still stands the test of time. I think that he did a great job, and I'm very excited to watch the rest of these movies. Now on to the reviews. So, Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it an 85%. Rotten Tomatoes audience also gave it an 85%. And IMDb gave it a 74%. Now, I personally am going to be right in between all of them. I think it definitely deserves a high 70s to a low 80s. And that is right where X-Men was. I think he definitely continued it well and got these reviews stand for it. Both X-Men and these were in the kind of high 70s to low 80s. So I think they did a great job reviewing it. And finally, the rankings. All right, the part you all have been waiting for. Where will X2 rank in its year, decade, and in all time? Let's start it off with 2003. So since it's the only movie I have reviewed in that year, it's going to be first. Simple enough. let's move on to 2000s. Now, I have reviewed two movies, X2 and X-Men. And I think X2 is just going to take the first position. I think it is the slightly better movie than X-Men. I just like the plot a little more, and the excess amount of characters also definitely helped with that movie. I saw myself enjoying that more. If I were to pick up one copy of each of them, I would rather watch X2 again. And now for all time, it's going to take the third position. It's going to be in between Megamind and X-Men. I already went over why it's going to be above X-Men. I just think it has the better plot. And why it's below Megamind, I think that since there's so many characters to follow in X2, I just think Megamind, when you watch it, you can really follow the plot a lot smoother because there isn't as many characters to follow. It's just Megamind and Metro Man, and that's all you really have to worry about, and Titan at the end. But so I just think the plot is just easier to follow, and you can get more engaged in watching the movie. And it's an easier watch, it's slightly shorter too. So I just think it deserves to be above X2, but not by much. Don't get me wrong. They are very close. They're probably honestly going to stick right on top of each other for a while because it was a very hard decision to make. Either way, guys, that's all I have for X2. If you guys want to see a specific movie, make sure to leave that in the comments. I'll see it. I'll make sure to get it. I'll watch it and I'll review it for you. And be sure to stick with me here if you want to see the entire X-Men franchise, because I'm going to be popping those out real often now, going up until the 25th of July, because that's when I'm going to go see Deadpool and Wolverine. But either way, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. Peace out.